Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to LCK Spring 2021. I'm Atlas, joined by Wolf for our final series of the evening.
Yes, it is time for what could be a much more compact series than we saw last time.
Compact, that's a good word for it.
This series might be shorter than Game 2 of our last series.
True, it could theoretically be.
In terms of game time, right? But yeah, this is T1's ability to come out to smash ㅅFAKER after what was a very close loss against tatthang.ytbg last week.
It was indeed, and to be honest, T1 have been on the up and up. I mean, I think even with a 2-1 loss against our world champions, you're probably not going to be walking away too upset about that particular match. I'm sure you guys have got the news. It has already been released by T1 on social media, but we will be getting the 8th rendition of a T1 roster. This one we like to call
Version 8?
Yeah, I mean, version 8 is one, but it's also the carrier veteran squad, where everybody else is a rookie. It's going to be an interesting one. I'm looking forward to seeing, whether it is going to stand up to what was, I think, the best iteration, the one that we saw recently with Teddy over Gumyushi. That is the change that has been made from last time. So not necessarily a lot that has changed. But switching out Teddy, I think, is going to change the dynamic of the squad. And I personally think that maybe not for the best, but we'll just have to find out. Let's bring up points of the match and have a chat about these two squads. As ㅅFAKER with a win here, they do make it to that 4-match spot that so many teams are sharing at the moment, Afrika Freaks and Nongshim specifically. But this is going to be a tough task. Last time around, though, Lava was sick. They played with Chieftain in mid lane, and it was all a bit strange. Now, at least they have a mid laner, and so that is definitely good. ㅅFAKER is going to be coming back, and of course, it has been a very, very long time, over 500 days, and of course, you knew him as Grace from the Jin Green Wings.
Yeah, I mean, ㅅFAKER coming back here is very much a, I think, surprise for a lot of people to see him return here to the LCK, but we'll see how he plays. Lava, as you mentioned, had that rough series against, he's had a rough season, but he actually wasn't able to appear in that rough series ㅅFAKER had to play against T1 last time. Yeah. He won't be playing against T1 this time either. And roster number 8, the youngest one, is, you mentioned Carrier being the only one who has experience on this roster. The average age is 19.4.
That is a very, very young roster.
4 of these players are playing the very first season of the LCK, so T1 have changed things very little between roster 7 and roster 8 coming in here. And, I mean, look, it's against ㅅFAKER, so you can look at this as a, let's put Gumyushi back in, see how it goes. Let's test this version of what's, in general, not that much of a changed roster, but time will tell how it plays out. Looking at these stats, I mean, unfortunately for ㅅFAKER, the truth of the matter is T1 have been a fantastic team in the later part of this season. The second round robin, they've looked much better, and they have they're first in the league at first turret percentage, as well as they have a fantastic win rate when they have that lead at 10, which they usually do.
They do. Their early game stats are actually very high. We've highlighted a few of them here, and it does make a lot of sense. A fun fact for you is based on percentage win rate per game, T1 is actually better than DRX, weirdly enough. They just, when they win, it's often the 2-0, and that it is a lot more stable. As you can see, ㅅFAKER making his way back onto the roster looks very different. Used to have sort of the long black hair, and now he's gone for a bit of a Chester Bennington vibe, which I'm liking a lot.
Yeah, the new nickname the Korean community is going to give him is LOL Monster, because they think he looks like Rap Monster from BTS. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with BTS.
I saw the side-by-side, and it's kind of there.
I could see it.
Yeah.
Here's, of course, the roster we were talking about for T1, Gumyushi, and over Teddy. T1 have kind of found their identity, and the fact that from last week to this week, this is the only change they're making is between Gumyushi and Teddy, whereas we're keeping Zayasen. Wonder is now the new staple jungler, and a team that has 3 junglers. He's kind of solidified himself there. Closer, we're seeing a lot. There's been a lot of rumors that, people have inside info that ㅅFAKER's not playing in scrims right now. We'll never know the truth of the matter, but at the end of the day, Closer has been playing most of the games in the second round robin here over ㅅFAKER. And this roster, when they're playing their best, looks to be their best roster so far. I mean, we saw some small mistakes in that series against tatthang.ytbg that ended up costing them big. A lot of criticisms of Closer's Rise, for example, especially when Faker is one of the most iconic Rise players of all time. But T1, they have bounced back in a big way, and I think even with Gumuzi in here, you don't expect anything but a 2-0 if you're watching the LCK. If you're an LCK fan, you don't expect anything different than that.
And also, Gumiushi's laning stats have been very good, as you can see here. Not exactly the highest when it comes to damage share and things like that, but that's because late game, he's not necessarily quite the hard carry that we've seen out of, Teddy, for example, on T1. However, I still think that he's a very, very talented player, and him and Carrier with all of that, young gun power towards the bottom side, it's going to make things difficult here for ㅅFAKER.
Yeah.
And Henna especially, I think, in the laning phase.
If you look at his kill participation, actually both of their kill participations, I mean, first and second in the league, they both do a ton of damage. I mean, obviously, Gumuzi hasn't played that much recently. He doesn't have a ton of games compared to Henna. Henna's played much more. But, if you look at it, you feel what these two players' strength is, it's in doing safe, consistent damage across team fights later on. So I think that when you look at where this game can go, if Henna can be stable, if the rest of the game is going decently well, like Henna does perform, right? If his mid lane is getting crushed or dominated, if the jungle isn't going horribly, Henna's the one constant that this team has. So if everything else stays stable, maybe he can actually help carry the end of the game. But it just feels like this is a matchup, unfortunately for ㅅFAKER, as many of them have been this season, that it's just not realistic to expect them to win.
No, I think that we do need to come into this series with T1 as definitely the hot favorites. I'm looking forward to seeing what ㅅFAKER can do because, of course, he did take a very long time off, right? Like, he left Jin Greenwings after being on the team for over 3 years. He left the squad and then didn't actually play League of Legends competitively during that time and has only joined ㅅFAKER now, quite late. It was February of this year. So looking forward to seeing what he's cooked up. He might have spent some time in, a hyperbolic time chamber of solo queue grind and really honed his skills. But, back when we were talking about him, he was playing Lissandra and things like that. Like, this was definitely a different look for League of Legends. But let's get into the draft and see exactly how this one's going to go as ㅅFAKER start on the blue side and start with the Thresh ban.
Thresh ban coming out here right away. Carrier has picked up a majority of T1's POGs, as we've talked about a lot. And so many teams actually even just target ban the pool of champions he has. He has one of the highest pools of champions of any support in the LCK, so it's hard to ban against him. But the Thresh is his most played, and we'll see the Rel ban counteractively here. The question becomes, where do we go for the jungle, right? For this one, I mean, Wonner has had a fantastic debut, and all the games he's had, he's looked really good. His Lilia in particular is the one he's played the most, the one he's had the most success with, so that's something that ㅅFAKER really need to consider here. I mean, you've banned Closer's Aurelia, and I think that there was a really high chance they would pick that up early if it wasn't. But I think the Lilia is something you really need to worry about too, and that opens up so many possibilities for T1 if you actually can draw a Lilia ban here on blue side.
Udyr is an interesting ban on red side. Not wanting to leave that one up though, not letting Umpty play that one. We've seen, Udyr remain definitely one of our stronger picks here in the LCK. Is Lucian going to be taken off the board? Closer getting a bit of attention here from ㅅFAKER. Maybe ㅅFAKER has a lot of vocality in the draft at the moment.
Yep, I think if you just ban Seraphine, you let Henna play Kai'Sa as T1, and then we're going to really learn where they want to head. Because the Lucian ban here and the Aurelia ban, there's a Seraphine. With those bans, you're already kind of accepting that they're going to take an AP jungler like the Lilia or the Nidalee. It really does feel that way. So they actually take the Lilia away, and this might actually push Wonner into the Nidalee. Because I think Graves is a really tough champion to kind of blind pick at this stage. Sure, you're going to know the jungle matchup, but you're not going to know the comps. And with the jungle nerfs, I really worry about Graves' clear speed and how much he's going to be able to impact the game if they do pick him right now.
Yeah, we didn't exactly see it work out too well for KT in our last series, as Renekton Nidalee is going to be locked away. And it was locked in so fast that, even our people watching out for what's happening in the draft got confused. And they just both go in at the same time. So, understandable. Of course, Renekton's slightly nerfed on this patch, but just a bit of his healing is still a dominant force, and Nidalee Renekton still does exactly what it says on the tin.
Yeah. The question becomes now, for ㅅFAKER, is he going to pick up an AD mid-champion right now, or are we going to save that for more of a counter pick later? And this might be a hint, right? The Tristana has been played pretty much exclusively in the bottom side of the map here in the LCK, but it can be flexed to mid. And with a player like Yaharong who's not been around for a long time, we don't know, exactly what he has been scrimming with the squad and when he's been running. So this is certainly something that could be a specific pick for him, as closer is just going to go away from the norm and just go straight into the Syndra. A little bit of a less exciting closer pick, sadly. But
still, good lanes for the Nidalee so far set up for T1. I do like it. Keeping their bottom lane a secret for now. And most likely will be Carrier that is looked at here in the draft for ㅣFAKER as we get to our second round of bans. The Pigeon Man going to be taken away from Yaharong. Was another one of his picks when he did play eons past.
This is his second most played last seasons he was playing in the LCK. And to see the Kalista ban here against Gamusi, we might even see... the Thresh is already removed, but you could still ban the FLOC if you're worried about the possibility of it, because right now you're thinking, okay, what is Gamusi going to try to carry with? The Xayah is another champion you could go down in terms of Gamusi's champion pool right now. Samira, just being kind of out on this patch. I don't think we'll be seeing her anytime soon.
Yeah, she doesn't really exist anymore. Is Alistair going to be taken away from Delight? Not something that Carrier wanted to go towards as well. Looks like the stock on things like Leona and Nautilus have gone up.
Yeah, I wonder which will be the last AD they ban here, because there's so much that Gamusi can do. They take the Ezreal away. I think that's a fair choice. That's pretty safe.
Not giving a lot over to a potential Kai'Sa here for T1. I assume support will be locked in here, potentially, unless they do want to counterpick for that position. They could do that. It's often the way that's seen as being more effective, and that's what they're going to go with here for T1. Yeah,
now we're going to find out what ㅅFAKER's mid lane is going to be and what type of damage it's going to be with the Lilia pick here and the Gnar. There's possibility it's going to be an AD mid champion. Even Yone is not out of the question here, but I really worry about what you're going to be able to accomplish with something like Yone into the Renekton, Nidalee, and the Syndra. And they just go with the standard Orianna follow-up, and it looks like Rakan is going to be the pairing there in the bottom side of the map. So nothing too exciting here for Yaharong's debut as return to the LCK. And the problem is if you go for this Rakan, they could just pick up the Leona, and then T1 have so much lockdown and so much skirmish potential, late game strength. Man, it almost feels like too good to be true. Carrier's looking for the Nautilus.
And this makes a lot of sense. This gives them CC absolutely everywhere. T1 are an early game team. They have drafted themselves an early game comp. And I think that, if you're a fan of T1, you're definitely excited about this, as even the Lux happy with that as well, but it's not going to be, as Nautilus just a little bit too consistent.
Yeah, Lux is one of the champions I love to watch in the LCK. Don't get to see her all too often, but I'll take the Nautilus. It's a really strong pick, too, into the Rakan. You have a lot of threat. You have really easy just point-click stun as well, post-6 when those all-ins come through. You can catch Tristana. She can kind of buffer the stun, but there's a lot of ways that this goes very well for Carrier in the bottom side of the map. It's one of his better champions. T1 got a little bit of everything. It's crazy to say this, but the one person you look at on this roster and you go, maybe not really his playstyle. A little bit weird is closer on the Syndra. And are you really going to mess that up? I really don't think so.
And it's also one of his most played champions, right? He's currently 2-1 on the pick. So even though it doesn't feel like a closer champion, I agree with you there. It's still something that he absolutely plays, and everyone does, let's be honest. I think it's only UCal that hasn't headed down the road of the Syndra. So these will be your comps. Certainly a lot of teamfight power on the side of ㅅFAKER if they do make it that far. With the Rakan, the Orianna, of course, the ball delivery system that can be very, very comfortable, late game carry potential of a Tristana, and then Gnar with all of his AoE CC, and paired with the Lilia who can do the same thing is, it's scary, but the problem is they're up against T1 who have an early game comp that should be able to set up lanes for Nidalee to really cause havoc.
Yeah, Umpty is going to have a really tall order ahead of him in this game, and he is going to have to carry and control parts of this early game, and he's going to have to be there for the counter ganks when Wonder goes to the top lane. If he's not, and that top snowballs, this is going to be a very easy lead for T1.
Yeah. Well, let's see exactly how it's going to go as we hop onto the Rift for game number 1. ㅅFAKER taking on T1. Last time, remember, it was junglers in the mid lane and a little bit of sadness. And now we do just have the straight up rosters with no issues of, you know, being unwell or anything like that.
Yeah.
Closer has Faker's skin, which is good because Faker wouldn't wear it. They may as well have Closer utilizing it.
Lava was a T1 trainee a long time ago.
Yeah, well back, yeah.
None of these players were on the roster back then, but interesting he doesn't face his former team now twice in a row. Well, I mean, he could be subbed in later, but seems unlikely.
Yep. Some deep wards going down, just making sure that we have as much information as possible as where ㅅ is going to be starting and where he's going to be going. Keeping an eye on Lilia's Raptors, definitely a good idea.
Yeah, getting that information lets you know a lot about where she is going to be and how much you can pressure and threaten. I'm going to start here on red, as we'll have the standard blue start for Honor as well. The scary part about this game for BROㅣ is just the top lane, right? The Nidalee Renekton, which is such a tried and true combo that they let through the draft because they were more concerned about Closer's Irelia, you know, and things like this. Like, we were more concerned about Closer just having a hyper carry type aggressive melee mid laner assassin. I say hyper carry, but it's not actually the correct term. But he's an assassin, right?
I know what you mean.
Like one that he can carry the game on by getting an early lead. Not to use the term hyper carry.
Yeah, and it could have been good in this roster as well, but now at least, you know, the onus isn't entirely onto Owner as far as who's going to be doing all the magic damage, as Hoya's going to lose a bit of his health bar here against Zeus. We'll have to keep our eye on just how the Renekton's going to be faring in the lane, whether the nerf really has done anything at all.
Zeus is like tapping his head like that meme. He's like, can't have reduced healing if I'm only queuing the enemy champion.
Yeah, there we go. Also, if you don't lose health,
if you don't lose health,
doesn't matter, you know? He did lose health though, so I guess not exactly going to be quite that powerful.
He's 4-1 on the Renekton. It's his most played champion. He's taking a page out of Rascal's book with how much they've given priority to this in the top side of the map for him.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can see it for good reason. This guy was... I feel like we don't talk about it as much because T1 has had some struggles and there's been a lot of controversy about the mid lane, but let's not forget that Zeus was considered by the Korean community one of the biggest up-and-coming rookies for this year that T1 grabbed. There's a lot of hype around this guy, and he came in and he played consistent, and then, you know, Closer has either stolen the show by playing great or by having mediocre performances, and so it feels like a lot of the attention's been taken away from this player who is phenomenal on the top side.
He's been playing very, very well. And, you know, this is a lane that Gnar has done well into. I feel like Gnar was actually picked as an answer to Renekton, and then just got really popular after that. But, you know, this is originally why, you know, the Gnar did find some strength. So you can see he's doing okay in the lane, even though Zeus has just kept shoving. And this is exactly what T1 want to be doing, right? They want to be getting all of this lane priority, utilizing it effectively, as now Hoya is going to go aggressive against Zeus, who does have a dice available, so he'll be fine. Yeah, there's a lot of zoning going on, actually, up here towards the top side.
And when you see the ping there from Honor as well, you know, he gets the double scuttle, so they're like, okay, well, Lilia could be up there, be careful. But they look at the vision, actually. He pinged question mark there, but they actually have several wards, as well as the scuttle there in mid. So you could have seen Lilia like do a sneaky play, but just not even going to be under threat. They're just playing this so safe and so carefully, and Nidalee have a very strong lead in the jungle at the moment.
Yeah, is Yaharon going to avoid the last orb, which is actually good news. Means that he does win out on that trade by just a little bit. That being said, he is not winning when it comes to the farm. This Closer is going to sidestep ㅅ, who will get stunned up. Owner's going to land the spear as well as he flashes out of that pounce just in the nick of time.
This is what I was talking about. You know, you really have to be there to catch these ganks in this matchup, right? The Lilia versus the Nidalee. And in this case, Honor is there. The stun is perfect. Gets that spear at pretty close to max range. And that's a flash. That's an insanely good trade for T1.
Yeah. It's just an example of the fact that T1 do have so much control over these lanes so far, as already Kerry has to flash. That's bad news.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much kill potential here. They had a wave, but, like, I think he's just trying to show some respect here. We've seen so many crazy early kills from Tristana in the bottom side of the map because she has insane chase potential, and she can push the envelope further than a lot of AD carries because she gets that reset and jumps back.
Also, the burst damage is very, very high.
Yeah.
The explosive charge as well as rocket jump. Actually doing a fair bit of damage early. You know, going back into the history books when it comes to Tristana, hasn't changed a lot over the years, unlike a lot of champions in this game.
Yeah, no. Pretty old school. There's no vision here. Keria.
Yeah, he's going to get bowling balled. Titan's Wrath going to be eaten immediately. Remember, doesn't have his flash. Nope. Now he's sort of walking up the lane. Watch out, Eep. He's going to go wide. Dredge line. Not going to be enough to save him. And first blood goes over to Umpty. As Zeus gets smacked back there with the Gnar.
Small mistake there from Keria. I mean, well, it's just a little bit greed. That gets punished. They didn't have vision, and that's exactly why he was headed towards that brush, because he wanted to get a ward up. Gets caught after losing his flash earlier. Again, not 100% necessary that he flashed previously, but that's the trade-off. And you get a call from Henna and Delight. Like, he has no flash, by the way.
Yeah.
And this is without 6. Umpty doesn't have 6 and still gets this successful gank on the bottom side of the map. This is a really nice start here for ㅅFAKER, and they're gifted a kill they shouldn't have been able to get.
Well, Ona is just going to come in and steal away a chicken. I like it. He's got the Zoid skin as well, one of my favorites. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. As we saw a stun about to come down, but let's have a look at the replay.
So he's obviously seen pathing here, and Umpty is here. He wants to grab a ward, and then it's just, I mean, there's no way to get out of this one. Gets the knock up. He used his dredge line to try to pull himself away, but he can't get out without a flash. And he couldn't have pathed to the right either. That would have actually created potentially an even worse situation.
Yeah. No, he was just dead. No flash, no chances. And dredge line just not going to be enough to get him to safety. So, we've been singing the praises of Keria quite a lot, but this is a little bit unfortunate. Yeah, still, it's not the end of the world, right? Like, the gold lead has not changed. It was a slight advantage for ㅅFAKER, but as you can see, other lanes have definitely been doing well as the gameplay button is pressed in the mid lane. Shockwave to answer. As now, Zeus is going to have a bit of a snooze. Ona is going to get here. Primal Surge keeps the Renekton alive for a little bit longer than he could have otherwise been, but in the end, it is going to be yet another kill for the Lilia.
Okay, guys, ㅅFAKER with the lead here. They have their win rate with the gold lead is just about 50%. They've only been ahead at 10 minutes 9 times, so like about a third of their games. This is one of those.
Whoa, okay. Keria going to answer that rocket jump with a dredge line. But just, you know, Henna getting a bit excited.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of Nautilus versus the Tristana here.
Yeah, it feels like one of the more popular answers.
Yeah. It's got a lot of easy lockup when the Tristana does go in. So this is an interesting one, though. I mean, ㅅFAKER have a really nice lead here. It's only a little bit in gold, but in terms of how they've been playing around the map, it shows that they understand how to use their composition. And it's a little bit scary for T1. These small mistakes are adding up.
Yeah, the plate is going to go down without Closer actually being able to pick that one up, opting in instead just to make sure that he goes for the best reset timing as he possibly can. His Verdant Barrier has now been completed. And look, the solo lane's doing very well for T1. That's why you can't see too much of a difference when it comes to gold. However, it's probably not going to be enough necessarily unless they can get a little bit more done and utilize, you know, things like this Renekton Nidalee combo and things like that, as Ona's going to realize that, heads towards the top side of the map. And let's see whether Hoya can avoid this one as Delight gets started on the Dragon.
Ding coming down. He knows there's a pretty good chance that Oner is here, and he's just going to walk away. Back to the turret, catches the wave perfectly. Oh, well, now I say it, and then...
Ooh, he is very far forward. Wallop goes down as Hoya gets a Gnar into the wall. They're waiting to get that stun out, and Oner is still here.
It's like, how much are they going to sell this, right? Okay. Hoya's got to be like, okay, what is going on? Like, why are you just trading with me like this? Like, they sold it so hard, and then eventually it was like, okay, well, I don't trust like that. You know, I'm not about that. Okay.
I'm not sure quite what he was waiting for, you know? Like, there were like a lot of buttons that were pressed, and but I guess maybe the hop out as the stun was landing meant that he didn't really have his window. still. A little bit unfortunate, meant that Owner was basically just wasting his time as he now heads down, grabs a Gromp, and Umpty, he's now towards this top side, looking to try and answer. But ㅅFAKER have kept pretty good control of this game thus far. And remember, they do have a pretty easy to execute composition, right? It's very wombo combo-y, and you know, make sure that Henna has enough space to move, put some orbs on some Rakans, things like that. And you're going to be pretty happy as you get towards the team fighting phase of this game.
And it feels like so many of these games that have been played in the LCK, you know, since we went into 11.3, have been about Lilia's getting out of control and getting a massive lead. So unfortunately for Warner, this is not it.
Nope, that's a flash from Umpty. That's a very Umpty move. He just really likes getting in there.
Traded at least.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if he hits that sleep, then that's a very high chance of a kill. I respect it.
Yeah, no, I liked it.
And, you know, I mean, it's plays like this proactively that ㅅFAKER is using to actually get these flashes away, so next time he shows up, it's potentially a kill there.
Well, that's a teleport. Owner is waiting here as the spear is going to connect. And the Unleashed Power, not quite enough, but they do get a free flash. And now they're going to try and put even more pressure on. There's the Rift Herald. Try and open up this map even further in a control mage lane. That is actually very important. Getting some extra plates here as Owner is going to collect a lot of that money alongside Closer.
Now you could see, too, that Yaharong, like, he sat back in his chair and let out a sigh when the teleport landed right into almost his death, and he was just barely able to escape. Had to flash as well, so loses flash and teleport, and is unable to save those plates.
Yeah.
Saves the turret at least a little bit longer, but this is a lot of gold traded back over to Closer, who's been having a great time in the lane.
He has. That being said, I think that, you know, if you're a ㅅFAKER fan, you're definitely happy with how this game has gone so far. I think a lot of people were expecting this one to be pretty cut and dry for T1. I think us included.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a look at, you know, how both of these teams have been playing and what the standings look like at the moment. But this is the thing. It's very hard to gauge exactly what T1 are going to look like on every given day because you just don't know who they're going to be fielding and what that looks like, right? Like, yes, you can see, like, on paper, like, this player is X good against this player and all this sort of stuff, but it's how a team meshes together that can change so drastically. So far, T1, you know, it's not all bad news, but it's not the greatest of early games.
I think ㅅFAKER also have this identity problem where people still think they're the worst team in the LCK when that's not, you know, statistically necessarily the case. All season long, it's kind of been changing, and
yeah,
they also, you know, are a new face to the LCK, right? They're a new team, the last one to get into franchising, right? The unknown face. So a lot of people just kind of see them as number 10 out of 10. So that's something that puts our expectations into T1 should 2-0 this, right? I mean, from the fans' perspective, from an analytical perspective, they also should be 2-0ing this, but just to put that out there, you know.
I agree. Zeus, it's a good wall up. Zeus taking a fair bit of damage. Dominance is going to be popped, trading ultimates here for our top laners. But just a whole bunch of buttons and not actually too much of a result.
Yeah, it happens a lot. No junglers nearby, so Closer's looking to get the last bit of this turret. Wants to put some extra pressure here onto Yaharong, but
bit of a lull state at the moment.
Yeah.
That's what I'm sort of feeling.
Does feel that way.
In a T1 game, though, that feels like it goes against this squad, who have certainly been very good at upping the tempo.
Yes.
It's not how it's been going thus far, though, as Gumushi just clears out the minions underneath the bottom outer turret. Yeah. And it's been 600 gold, that's it, you know?
You know, you've been talking about this, too. You know, you kind of countered my point earlier saying, like, well, Syndra feels a little bit weird for Closer, and it's one of his most played, but he has a lot of champions at 3, so it's, like, tied with his massive champion pool. But it does feel like when Closer's playing more aggressive champions in mid, that they get a bigger lead, or they utilize that. In this game, it feels like T1's identity with this roster, because it's the first time they played this roster and he's playing passively. It doesn't mesh as well, right? Like, it feels like there's something a little bit off about this one comparatively. They're not having a bad game by any means, but it does feel like that, you know, putting him on a control mage with Wonder, they're not on the same page at the moment.
Well, right now they are getting the Rift Herald. Good rotation up there from Closer as the bowling ball is going to connect. And actually the sleep is committed to Yaharong. Moving on over as Hoyer avoids the spear. I don't know whether Umpty really wanted to do that, but it does get them control. of that Rift Herald, and they just steal it away. The lunch money gone here from T1, and ㅅFAKER just taking more and more.
Yeah, and this is with constant lane priority to closer in mid. They're still able to make this rotation over. They get that. And the top lane, has been a little bit more back and forth as of late, but it has been otherwise pretty controlled by the Zeus, Renekton. So they're finally going to get this mid turret down.
Those Merc treads are pretty high value here on ㅅFAKER right now. But still, they get the turret, and that is great news here for T1.
How much more can ㅅFAKER snowball this? Because that's going to be huge for this game. It's an Infernal Soul, so that's huge for their composition, especially the Lilia, who's the most fed one on their team.
And the Tristana as well, right? Like,
yeah,
this is going to mean great things for ㅅFAKER if they can continue to stack them. But T1 really just haven't really come alive so far this game, and they have a composition that really wants to.
Yeah. Sooner
rather than later.
Exactly.
They would have preferred the laning phase to, extend and be able to get these gank setups for Oner to work out, but it just hasn't really been a thing.
I mean, Nidalee's not terrible as the game goes on, but she doesn't have anything going for her in this game. Unfortunately, the Renekton is going to struggle without having a massive lead either later on in the game. So, I mean, we need something to happen in these early skirmishes here for T1. They need to be able to force a fight here. Maybe Keria can get a pick. Something needs to happen, or Humpty is just going to be happy to continue in these slower fights, doing that tick damage down with the early Leandries he has. And then it's going to scale up better and better for ㅅFAKER, especially if they get this third Drake. They get to force the next few fights on their terms for the soul.
Yeah, exactly.
It's nasty.
3 minutes until that Infernal Drake is going to spawn. Keria looking for a bit of a wraparound here as Oner once again towards the bottom side of the map. Kamishi a bit upset that he caught the explosive charge damage. As the spear is going to go slightly wide in this turret, very close to going down. Tristana, of course, best friends with killing turrets, as Zeus going to pop the ultimate to keep himself alive. Actually avoids the Gnar damage as now Hoya in mini Gnar form. There's a dice available here for Zeus. Well, actually, no, that was the dice, but decides not to trade flashes.
Yeah.
Here with the Gnar, ㅅFAKER are going to be able to take down the bottom outer turret. Oner looking for another spear, doesn't really find it.
This is so great for ㅅFAKER. Hoya lives, they get the bottom turret, everything's working out.
Yeah.
It's like ㅅFAKER have just been coming extremely unlocked today, and the funny thing about it is the only thing that changed, hold that thought.
Yep, Humpty might have been cast Curse by you, Wolf, unfortunately.
Well,
spin around a bit as in goes Delight, saving his Lilia, and it's the wrong time to get sleepy. Unfortunately, as now Keria finds himself surrounded by 4 as well, and no, that was a blessing, Wolf. You are absolutely right. 4-0 now. ㅅFAKER.
And the only thing they've changed in this roster is they brought ㅅFAKER in, and I feel like of the 5 players, he's having the worst time. Like his turret's gone. I mean, he's only 20 CS behind, but he's the one who's struggling, right? But I mean, he's doing okay, but he hasn't been able to get lane priority. But the rest of ㅅFAKER are actually having a great time because Umpty on this Lilia pick is getting serious value. And every single time it feels like T1 are going to make a play or something is going to go well for them, or they're going to get a good invade off. He comes, he catches them, sets up a sleep, they turn the fight. And, every single win that ㅅFAKER has had in their upsets, they have stayed calm. They've actually, won it usually very slowly. We go into the late game where they finally close it out. But this is a team that doesn't drop leads. Like, we could definitely say that about ㅅFAKER. And the big leads they've had against top teams,
I mean, those 4 times that it happened, like, it really doesn't happen a lot. But when it does, you're exactly right. Like, they generally hold on to it. And Umpty has always been this style of player. Back when he was on Jin Air, of course, it's actually kind of cool that we've got ㅅFAKER and Umpty, who have played together in the past on Jin Air. But, like, Umpty's always been a very good snowball jungler, but unfortunately, he often doesn't find himself with advantages like that as everyone's getting sleepy under this turret. There it is, the grand entrance shockwave and a very dead Nidalee. T1 look completely out of sorts.
Yeah, T1 need to get their mentals unboomed here because it's time to actually tighten up the play here. You have to be aware of the wombo combos. I mean, this isn't even a wombo combo, it's just pretty straightforward.
But I mean, that's a pick onto the jungler as Soul Point is now available for ㅅFAKER. It's perfect timing as well.
Yeah. You've got to be aware of the potential that they have. When the Rift Herald gets dropped like that, they have pick potential there. You don't respect it, you get picked, and then you lose the Rift Herald, or excuse me, lose the Drake. And now Soul Point goes to ㅅBROㅣ at 20 minutes into the game, and it's an Infernal Soul with a comp that would love to have that. You know, the Tristana and the Lilia here are going to be celebrating. I mean, Yahara will be happy too, but I mean, this is starting to become a lead that's almost insurmountable. And T1, the fights are going to get harder. You know, from here, like this Drake goes against the next Drake goes away from them. I don't know if they can recover. This is just a sleep setup here. Easy to walk forward, ball on top of the Rakan, and look at the damage output for Umpty. So much value on this Lilia pick.
Yeah, not to mention, you know, Yaharong being able to really operate the shockwave effectively. The communication between this ㅅBROㅣ squad looking very, very good. And, you know, sometimes Umpty, like, he plays like this no matter what's happening, right? Like, he's just always aggressive, always pulls the trigger if there's ever a trigger to pull. Like, he's that kid that, you know, if he's in a room and there's a button of any kind, he's pressing the button. Yeah. I was one of these kids. I know exactly how that feels. But, like, he does that in League of Legends, always has. And he's getting rewarded for it because there is follow-up to his attempts. It's really cool to see. As now Yaharong is going to have to flash. Shockwave comes through to try and buy himself some space.
He gets
out. Easy peasy.
Teleport.
Not the teleport that you were really looking for here, as Hoya is going to get the Gnar into the wall. Had that Gnar bar set up really nicely. As now Owner off to the backside, uses the Blast Cone thanks to the Infernal Rift in order to get out. But it is going to mean that Hoya survives what looked like a pretty unfortunate teleport.
Yeah, and also T1 get out after what was potentially a disaster as well. Once Umpty gets there, then, you know, you hit a sleep, he has it available, and actually that could have been like 2 or 3 going down for T1 if you actually do chase there, so they get out.
All right, Carrier finding the Rakan, but he's got Battle Dance, he'll be okay. And it's still only 2,000 gold, right? Like, it's not like an insurmountable lead, but if you have a look at the compositions, I feel like ㅅBROㅣ having a good time.
Yeah, it's the comps and the Drake situation.
Yeah, right.
That actually add up together to be more valuable than the 2.1 thousand gold lead that they have. This is where you're really worried as T1 because the Renekton starts to fall off. And if the Renekton is fed and has the items in an accelerated state, like if the tempo goes up for T1, then the Renekton can continue to actually get fed and things can snowball that way. But when you're just going kind of even and slightly behind, in fact, in this case for Zeus, you've got a Stride Breaker and some armor, and that's it. You know, you're not going to be threatening anybody. You're not going to have these incredible flanks. Like, no one is afraid of the Renekton right now for ㅅBROㅣ. That's a problem.
Yeah, especially when, you know, Henna can reposition so effectively with a rocket jump. He's going to be taking a red buff here. He has got the Phantom Dancer complete. Now looking for an Infinity Edge by the looks of things, and that 3-item Tristana is lurking on the horizon.
And remember what we talked about in terms of Henna. You think of him as a player who, because ㅅBROㅣ hasn't been that successful, you know, he doesn't get a lot of praise compared to a lot of the AD carries in the league, but he is #1 in kill participation. And you go to those late games where ㅅBROㅣ just play carefully, let's maintain our lead. He does a majority of the damage. He's in, you know, high kill participation. He's always there in the team fights like he needs to be. His positioning is good. And he gets to shine only in these rare games, right?
Yeah.
ㅅBROㅣ.
The stars seem to have aligned once again here for ㅅBROㅣ. I was actually talking backstage to Keeson, who is one of our observers, and I was like, what happens if ㅅBROㅣ wins this series, you know? And he's like, maybe the internet breaks.
I don't want to be in the T1 fan cafe when that happens.
Yeah, well, exactly. Exactly.
Oh,
this is not what I was expecting.
Game's not over, you know.
No, true.
And the funny thing about this too is ㅅBROㅣ, they're the new team, right? And they're 3-8. They don't have that identity in the LCK, but a lot of these players are actually veterans compared to what is mostly a rookie squad of T1 players here.
Oh yeah, I mean it's only Carrier, and he debuted last year.
Exactly.
And he's still very, very young. His owner's going to land a spear. Battle Dance gets Delight out of there as we've got 35 seconds on this Infernal Soul point for ㅅBROㅣ. And T1 know that they have to fight for this. They do have the flanking Renekton towards the bottom side, as more of these bowling balls are connecting, and the rest of ㅅBROㅣ now moving back to this outer turret in the mid lane. They will be able to break this one pretty comfortably.
It's hard to clear wards here as Delight because you're on the Rakan. You have a little bit of mobility, but you're so scared right now with all this vision that T1 has. Zeus is spotted, so they start to feel a little bit more comfortable to move through, but T1 had positional advantage, but they can't keep it.
Yeah, and this flank control ward here as well is really, really strong. Zeus going to have to walk over that if he does want to get into that good position, to get into the back line. He's already pre-popped the ultimate, as he does have teleport, so theoretically he could be going for that, but now he gets the bad news. And Hoya is already over that wall. Carrier gets into the backline, but immediately gets chunked out. And now Delight's going for it. There's the shockwave. Doesn't really do too much, but the Drake is secured by Umpty, and the fight is being won here by ㅅFAKER. Kimayushi tries to be the hero, and the gameplay button will get rid of the Tristana, but unfortunately it is way too little and way too late. ㅅFAKER, they grab the Infernal Soul and win the team fight. That's an ace, and that could just be Baron.
I mean, I think it is. This is Infernal Soul at 25 minutes, you know, into the game. And this has just been a fantastic game for ㅅFAKER. The fight was almost perfect. They handled the Renekton flank so well. Umpty's in on top of the Drake, makes sure he can get the smite. It is such a clean ㅅFAKER game, one of our best. I mean, we've seen them take on a few Titans, right? The upset win against Damwon and Kia at the beginning of the season was the most memorable. But this is definitely going to go down in their very short history as one of their best games. And this is, again, all based on Umpty's control of the map with this Lilia pick that so many teams are passing up and giving over to blue side. I mean, this is just fantastic. I mean, T1 look a little bit lost here as well as the fight ensues. Umpty is doing so much damage, then goes golden. They can't deal with him, and Carrier is kind of caught and stuck. Zoned out is Zeus, and then the ball comes through once again. Like, what are you going to do here? Kimayushi is like, I can kill Instinct Kitten and then I'm dead. Closer does trade it back. But at the end of the day, this is such a clean fight for ㅅFAKER. It was so well played. They dealt with the Renekton extremely well. Lilia going golden after doing a ton of that damage. And look at the stacks coming through on the Medjais.
Yeah, this is a very confident Umpty, and it's been so long since we've seen it. And he's such a nice kid. You know, it's just good to see finally Umpty has a reason to be happy. 10 stacks so far on that Medjais, and I don't know how many more he's going to be able to put there, because this is a ㅅFAKER looking to try and push forward and open up the base here of T1. Zeus once again pre-popping that ultimate, looking for his chance to get into a backline. Unfortunately, it's just not going to be an opportunity given to him. Yeah,
it's not an insane cooldown, putting these early twice and not find anything out of it.
He's a big fan of the pre-pop, though.
Yeah.
He made it into the Mad movie with exactly a play like that, but sometimes, you know, doesn't necessarily work out as Hoya going to get that split push on towards the bottom side and does pretty comfortably get rid of the inner turret down there.
I mean, it's crazy that we're in a situation where ㅅFAKER has put T1 to where their whole game plan against this Baron is, I hope Zeus doesn't get seen and maybe we can set up a flank. But I mean, otherwise, that's like where we're at in this game, is Renekton's expiration date has kind of been hit here because he's just not that far ahead. I mean, he didn't get ahead. He's in fact significantly behind. All he has is his Randuins, and ㅅFAKER have a Lilia that is going to do massive damage in every single fight and can hold her own in a side lane against the Renekton because of how this game has gone.
Not to mention, Henna is level 14 now. Draw a Bead is giving him a lot of extra range. Like, the siege potential of this ㅅFAKER squad is still pretty high. Plus, you know, they can dive, they can throw the Rakan in there with an orb on his head, and we've seen this already work out for ㅅFAKER in the outer turret in mid, as Hoya is just repositioned towards the top side, still has teleport available if ever he needs to do that again, as we've got 35 seconds left on this Baron buff.
Should be another turret. I mean, this is going to be a very early Elder fight, too.
That is very true, actually.
And like, there's
29 minutes.
There's not enough time for T1 to like actually win a fight or force a skirmish. Like, there's no other objectives between now and then for T1 to maybe get a lucky pick, or to fight for them to fight over vision, to maybe find someone who's going a little bit too deep, like Delight's trying to clear a ward. Like, T1 doesn't have very many opportunities to get an advantage before this fight. So it's going to come down to another straight-up 5v5 where the wallets are heavy. And ㅅFAKER, I mean, they already have control over the map. And as long as they sit back patiently, which they have in every single game they've had a lead in, like, you know, not to be a broken record here, but that's what they do. It feels like T1 don't even get miracle chances.
Well, we'll see whether they can win a fight around the Elder Drake. Picking that one up is going to be ever so valuable. But now they have to fight this team that does have the Infernal Soul buff. They've got a Tristana with 3 items. That Infinity Edge now online, has a stopwatch there, which feels a bit like luxury at this point in time. And, you know, they've scaled. This is a ㅅFAKER that is looking very scary with the 8,000 gold lead and a composition that is very happy to be playing in the latest stage of the game.
You know what you love to see too is going back, double control words on the Gnar, double control words on the Lilia. They have right now 6 control words in their inventory. They already have mostly vision control over the map. They have the waves controlled, and they're just like, well, let's just make sure we have all the vision always forever for the next 60 seconds, because I don't want T1 to have any ways to flank. I don't want Zeus to have any opportunities to threaten the backline, force that, you know, an early stopwatch out of Henna or the Zhonya's out of Yaharong. You know, why take any chances? We love to see that commitment to just playing for their lead, playing it safe.
And look at all of their vision as well. Like, so much discipline out of Fred at BROㅣ. That's crazy. Carrier not going to get sleepy just yet. He's burning down just a little bit.
I mean, there's just so many wards.
There's a Morellonomicon just like built outright on Umpty as well. That was a big last purchase.
It's great versus the comp they're up against.
Okay, Carrier, yeah, going in. Not sure whether he necessarily wants to. He's got a 2-man sleep to come forward as Carrier's just exploded. Reset does come down as Henna is just going to go golden. And unfortunately for Zeus, he's out of position. Oh my god! The fadeaway jump shot as Yaharong just executes. Gumayushi here, closes now running for the hills. Owner, the last man standing. And Fred at BROㅣ, they can just kill the Nidalee and then win the game if they would like to, as Umpty's unfortunately going to find his first death this game. But it's an ace, and Fred at BROㅣ will just run it up the mid lane and try and take down these turrets.
Super valuable cannon minion here, just going to allow them to crush the turret super fast, and they're going to run over here to these Nexus turrets and end the game. What a huge win here for Fred at BROㅣ. Start to finish, absolutely clean play. Get an early lead and push it to the finish line.
Yeah.
That stopwatch you were talking about, luxury stopwatch, ended up being a Rolex for Henna.
That was a beautiful one. As Fred at BROㅣ, man, like, you think about like upset wins like this was just well played. It was some good League of Legends out of Fred at BROㅣ in this game. I think that T1 lacked a lot of the decisiveness that we've seen them utilize in recent matches. But damn, I don't know. Like, and this Yaharong maybe he does it for the team. Maybe this guy gives them some of that Michael's secret stuff that only Space Jam usually has.
Yeah, and like this is another one of those POG pass.
Yep, let's do this.
Today
no one knew that happened.
Today I'm just not on point and getting these out on time. But this is also, I feel like, the first glimpse into how differently T1 looks with this roster, you know, in terms of like, I feel like it's not about Gumayusi, it's about Closer playing Control Mage. Like, this is the first time Wonder is playing with Closer where he's playing passively and defensively, realistically, right? So that's where it feels like there's a little bit of a disconnect when Closer's like, yeah, I can get lane prio, but I can't threaten kills, and I can't actually get you control of the lane so hard that I can come with you to the top side of the map straight up no matter what, whenever you want. It feels really different, right, when you see Closer on a more passive champion.
That's true, and I mean, like, Syndra isn't necessarily super passive, but the fact that you just build Merc Treads and then you're absolutely fine in that lane makes it so difficult. As we have a look at the last team fight here as Carrier takes a dredge line that maybe just really didn't want.
Yeah, I mean, this makes this fight super easy to take for Fred at BROㅣ. There's no decision-making that comes into this. You get the reset, obviously, right away onto Henna, and that's going to allow him to escape here once he has the stopwatch, which gives him so much time. Zeus is kind of caught here, and then he actually flashes and he's like, okay, I'm going to have to use my dash reset. And the ultimate to push Gumayusi away is perfect. And then it's just a cleanup from here. Nothing they can do. Wonder trades back one onto Umpty. Not entirely sure how that happens, actually. Oh, he gets the spear and the pounce follow-up, so lots of damage there. But wow, what a sick team fight here when they get one opportunity from Carrier and they collapse in. And look at the damage on the Gnar in this game.
Yeah, Hoya having a big game here and really demonstrating that, you know, Gnar versus Renekton is still, you know, what we remember from old. The Nidalee Renekton wasn't really utilized, though. I felt like there was a lot of happy feeding and a lot of sitting in brushes for Owner this game. He really didn't find any of his opportunities. And Fred at BROㅣ, I think, played it very, very well, making sure that they were safe, making sure they mitigated what is early pressure and early opportunity that T1 normally find for themselves in a lot of these games. Normally, they're able to manufacture these moments. Just straight up didn't happen here. And Fred at BROㅣ, behind Umpty and his extraordinary Lilia and how big she got in the early stages, Just felt like there was no way back for T1. So
yeah, and how do you get your head straight after a loss like that too? I mean, we saw it happen in Dom1 in the Dom1 Kia series where extremely early mistakes that they had, they ended up losing a game, then they bounced back hard. I think it's a lot of this is going to be about the draft. And since they're going to blue side now, I think they should try to get the Lilia themselves. Wonder's best champion. If it's not banned, they've got to first pick it.
Yeah, I think there's certainly some opportunity to move back. Game 2, not historically the greatest for T1, but let's see whether they can turn it all around. Remember, this is option 8, and maybe option 8 is all about games 2 and 3.
Could be.
But we'll have to find out after a short break, ladies and gentlemen, when we're back for game number 2.
잘하자.
네, 정면에 있어.
잘 걸렸다.
야, 살짝 볼게. 내내 졸려. 내내 잤어.
모텔 먼저, 모텔 먼저.
잡았고.
나가줘. 카이다 묶었어.
나 괜찮아.
나 시계. 흔들었어. 카이다 노플. 레이콜.
너무 힘들어. 너무 나 붙어봐줘. 나 떴다.
신드라 잡았어.
힘들어 잡고
근데
가자.
라인 살리고 끝내.
라인.
이거 내가 집 끊을게. 다 가봐. 내가 집 끊을게.
얘 잡으면 끝나잖아 어차피. 잡으면 끝날 듯.
가자. 잘했다. 내가 하면 될게. 다음 판 잘해보자.
노틸러스 15초. 이거 노틸이 웨이브 지울 수 있어. 다음 라인 써라. 나를 찍어줄게. 이거 다음 라인 써 할래.
다음 라인 안 써.
이쪽 무빙 쳐, 이쪽 무빙.
천천히요.
두 개 맞지 마.
천천히 끝내면 될것
15초
같아.
카이사.
몸 나야. 나 변신도 되고.
오케이.
잡자. 잘했어.
다음 판 하는데 좀만 침착하게 꺼내면 될 듯.
MSI
季中冠军赛
MSI is back.
Welcome back everybody for the second match of the night, and ㅅFAKER is back on their peak performance to take down T1. What's your take on the draft, guys? So the main champion for the jungle role has been rising up in the tier list, and with the Irelia, Lucian cards are getting banned out. Well, ㅅFAKER was confident enough to lock in Lilia as their first pick instead of Nidalee, because this champion actually fits better. A champion that can make plays, and also a champion that can kind of dominate the team fight. And definitely taking the lead in this team play was able to get a lot of work done. I think ㅅFAKER in all three lanes, I think they're maybe top and bottom duo maybe, they were performing so well in lanes, so they were able to exert their dominance starting from the laning phase. I think ㅅFAKER was able to take a very easy game this time around. And there were a lot of moments where T1 was playing in their haste, so we are gonna look through those replays later on. So we want to go back to the reason why they were kind of starting to fall apart during the laning phase. Maybe it was Lilia. Lilia was able to pull off a very strong ganks, but at the same time, was not going all in for ganks. He was just clearing his camp, and then whenever he made a gank, actually, just T1 players fell to for no big reason. I think T1 was not really up to their full potential starting from the laning phase. BROㅣ, on the other hand, they did perform well in the team fight stage, but at the same time, all throughout the game, they were pretty much solid up against T1. Now then, let's take a look at T1 playing in their haste in the mid and late game. So the first replay over here is around this Drake, because BROㅣ committed really hard on the bottom lane. T1 made a rotation to their jungle. So had a bit of a hint of this upcoming play, but we had some perfect counter play coming out from Delight and also Yaharong. So because they were fighting in the opponent's jungle, actually T1 got outnumbered really fast, so they chose to fight and took this fight where they are not in a very good spot. T1 did not make a reasonable decision over here because they were getting emotional, because they were losing a bit in this game. They wanted to trade back with something, so they were forcing off some play, but that didn't really work well. Now let's take a look at the second replay. Maybe they were too caught up about this Dragon Soul and Lilia, the jungler. Zeus just went to a very awkward spot, and then Kyria, he kind of takes the dredge lane, which kind of actually disconnected himself from his teammates. So it was a very bad position for T1 in this team fight in general. Their ultimate goal was taking down Lilia, but actually Lilia was in a very safe spot. She was able to clean up that Dragon Soul. And then after they secured the soul, it was so easy for ㅅFAKER to just win this team fight. We can tell T1 was so kind of in an impetuous fashion, so they had a very narrow vision over here. They were just going all in on that Lilia, but at the same time, their accuracy of their ability, the way they made the map rotation was not on the same page. Whereas ㅅFAKER, they were having a fantastic teamwork. Actually, they knew how to kind of save their Lilia for the soul, and also their follow-up team fight after that objective lockdown was also on point. The POG will go over to on Lilia. Second POG of the split, and I think his Lilia is really worth banning. In this current jungle meta, I think this Lilia fits the best playstyle. And also, Hoya was doing a fantastic work on the top lane. In addition to that, their bottom duo was also just outplaying the opponents by themselves, but just came in to lock down those leads and connecting that into kills. was the one that kept drawing the attention from T1's players. He actually purchased the Dark Seal very early on, and then because he was getting super fat, he was able to complete that into Magi. And we could see a massive confidence coming from And he was definitely in a spot where he can kind of single-handedly carry his teammates till the end of this game, and perfect POG score for in this game. I think T1 should consider changing their tier list and their draft up against Freddy Brion, because game number 1 was very one-sided in favor of Freddy Brion. In the past series, we know that Freddy Brion has a very high, so let's take a look game number 2.
Thank you so much, G-Sun, for the analyst desk translation as per usual. And let's do it. Let's hop into game number 2. No changes for the roster. I'm sure there are a lot of people that you were yelling for some potential substitutions, but that is not how we do it here.
Nope,
we are committed to option 8, Wolf.
That's right. T1 does not change their rosters from game to game. They come in with a game plan. They come up with a roster they've decided they're going to use for a series, and no matter how many people call for it, no matter how much it feels like a change is warranted, we just are not going to see it. And this was a one-of-a-kind game for Freddy Brion. They got an early lead. They played well around it. They did not accelerate the game too quickly, but they fought around objectives just perfectly. They punished Keria for his dredge lines, and then, I mean, Henna is the type of player who is going to pop off in the late game if you give him the opportunity to, and he does on the Tristana.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to see another game like that for Freddy Brion, but what I do know is that I think that they should just ban the Lilia away. This is going to be T1's blue side game. Don't let Wonder have it, because without it, he's looked weaker. When Closer's on control mages, they've looked weaker with this roster. Obviously, sample size of exactly one game with this duo. But, like, it seems like this is the identity that T1 wants to put with this roster is a little bit different with the draft they chose and what we saw the series of Dom1 Kia, right? They got extremely aggressive to some successes and some failures, but this time we're slowing it down a little bit, and Freddy Brion is very happy with that so far.
No, I agree. I'm looking forward to seeing how Freddy Brion tries to draft themselves this time around, and speaking of which, we are into the ban and pick for game number 2. T1 now with blue side, but we've seen red side be a lot more powerful so far today in our first series. And we'll see whether Freddy Brion can utilize that to its full effectiveness, as T1 do take away the Udyr first up. I am a big fan of banning it on blue side.
Yeah, the Aurelia ban comes through once again. Pretty decent chance we'll see a Lucian ban, but do we see once more the Lilia here for T1? Did they get away with that first pick, or is it banned by Freddy Brion? I'd love to see a ban on it.
Yeah, last time around, Freddy Brion took away the Thresh, the Aurelia, and the Lucian, and now they have an opportunity to maybe drop the Thresh ban and ban something like the Lilia potentially, as Rel once again going to be taken away. No changes with the T1 bans.
Yeah, Lucian
so far,
through.
And you're exactly right. I actually feel like these two are actually the smartest. Means that you know, the AP junglers become a little bit more difficult to run.
Exactly, and that's the idea with this, because you know that he's going to play either the Nidalee or the Lilia. I mean, that's what he likes to do. That's his MO. That's what he's shown us. I mean, that's where the data points. So, Tristana,
interesting.
Target ban against Henna here. Not want to deal with that anymore.
He has been enjoying it.
Yeah, give me that Lilia ban. That's what I want. I mean, like, if you ban the Seraphine, it's a decent choice as well, but like, if Closer's playing Seraphine, I think it's a win. You know, based on playstyle, based on what we've seen so far. There it is. Thank you.
I like
Korean
it.
commentators all like yelled in agreement as well. Like, we were all on the same page.
We're all synced up. We're all synced up. Sanke over there, well and truly off in the corner. Kunkui as well as Dongjun up there. And we all feel the same way about this one, as Seraphine is going to be locked in. Could be Keria, could be Closer. Now Freddy Brion with their opportunity to pick something away.
Yeah, and I mean, Closer on Seraphine, I feel like he's going to play well. He's going to have really nice ults. He's a good player in terms of decision-making usually. You know, we'll take some asterisks with that one, but it feels like it means you're playing against slow T1, and you're not looking at, like, Closer. Why is he famous? Why was he a top solo queue player? Why was everyone hyped about this player? Because of his Aurelia, right? Because of his assassin play, and not, you know, control mages and not the Seraphine. That's where you think of T1 as, okay, well, if you're playing something like that, if you're playing that style, it's probably Faker you're going to see, right? But I like ㅅFAKER's start here quite a bit, and they even get the Thresh now because that was left open.
Yep, they could take the Jinx alongside it, and that's
There it
exactly what
is.
they're going to do.
Uh-oh.
I like this, and it's yet another turret destroyer, right? Like, Jinx and Trist actually play very similarly, and sort of work similarly as the game moves on as well. So I like this one, especially with how strong Jinx is on this patch. ㅅFAKER certainly with a decent answer. A lot of options here now for T1, but looks like it's going to be just the bottom lane that's looked at, and Kai'Sa once again going to be locked in.
For T1 here, this is you know, this is the Keria slot, right? And
Wow, okay.
I did not expect to see the Pyke again. I was like, well, Nautilus still works okay here.
But it also means that Seraphine is now definitely going mid lane, so ㅅFAKER can answer that with whatever they would want to, because that is cards certainly face up so far.
And it's
it
the
will
Azir.
be the Azir. Like, we did see, I believe, Azir banned second round
Yes.
in the first game, and Yaharong, formerly Grace, of course, does very much like this champion, but ㅅFAKER once again, the dirty scaling word is going to be called out, but certainly a lot of peel availability for the Jinx if the Azir is played a little bit more defensively.
I mean, also, Azir is going to have the ability to threaten kills on the Seraphine in mid lane a lot. Post 6, first one gets flash, second one gets the kill. You always have to be aware of that if you're Closer in the game, and, you know, the Seraphine cannot duel the Azir. It can only keep up with in CS, and we'll be fine in that regard, but when the Olaf ban coming through here,
whoa.
I would have rather liked to see the Nidalee, but I mean, like, it's mid Seraphine, so they are thinking about an 80 jungle for sure. Might just end up being the Graves.
I have a feeling that Umpty's probably looking at the Graves for himself, potentially, as they do ban the Skarner away. Certainly something that Umpty has played in the past, but not to very much success, and Hecarim going to be the one taken off the board.
Hecarim works pretty well with the Azir too, so I like this ban quite a bit. Suits the damage types for ㅅFAKER. And the cool thing about this for ㅅFAKER is they get the, well, I was going to say they get the top counter pick, but they're actually going to go for the jungle counter pick instead, which, given how Oner has been playing for T1, I mean, I think it's a reasonable choice. You have to go Sion here, I think. If you're Zeus against the Renekton pick, it's the safest option. Gragas is another alternate option, but with Seraphine mid, feels like your damage profile could suffer from that quite a bit.
Yeah, potentially. Especially with the fact that Kai'Sa does do a fair bit of magic damage herself. You don't want to give them too much value, as, oh my goodness, we would be going back in time if Rek'Sai was locked in.
Feels like we might be.
Yeah. Okay, no.
No, just the Graves. Well,
I think this makes a little bit more sense.
yes, it does. A little bit less interesting, but solid pick here for Oner. Suits the composition. And
This would
they
be
wouldn't. Don't you dare. Ooh, Talia.
Yeah, haven't seen her for a while. Back in the jungle yet again.
I mean, the nerf is substantial, but it's not an unplayable champion, right? I mean, much more power on this champion still than, say, the Olaf, for example. You have a lot of AP damage with this, but Talia works so well with Renekton.
True.
I mean, another option obviously could have been the Nidalee, since that didn't get banned away this time. But this is going to be high octane, extremely aggressive around top and mid for ㅅFAKER. Closer is going to have to hold his flash tight to his chest because there's so much kill potential here. It's actually insane. On to Zeus in the top lane. It won't be as easy because he's Sion. It's the perfect pick for this. Very survivable, very difficult to kill. Not impossible. But I look at this comp for ㅅFAKER. I'm like, okay, scaling, check. Good skirmish power in the early game, check. Solid CC. Front-to-back team fighting is good. T1 have good CC with Sion. They have the ability to lock somebody up with the Encore or a whole team up. Yep. And the Pyke, too. I mean, that's a lot of extra gold you can grab, but it feels like T1's comp is way harder to execute.
Feels a little bit like that. I do like how, you know, ㅅFAKER do have a lot of good sort of lanes that they have set up. We saw Thresh and Jinx already demonstrate the, you know, Flame Chompers combo, things like that, that has worked out quite nicely. KT didn't necessarily make it work twice in a row, but we saw the power of that particular combo. But, I mean, the scaling for T1 is also pretty fantastic. They have a very clear front line in the Scion that will be a better tank than the Renekton. But it will mean that T1 do have to play a slower style, and we'll see whether they can just... Slow and steady might just win the race here in this particular game, and if they can stop their top lane from falling too far behind with the fact that Taliyah Renekton is so strong, then it could certainly be a much better time for this team. Plus, we know that just straight down the line, a lot of these players have demonstrated much higher potential than what we've seen from ㅅFAKER. So we know that there is more that T1 can give us. And I'm just hoping that it's going to be on display here in this particular game. Closer going for a more of an aggressive style, with the Aerie being picked up in the mid lane. We've seen a few different things, Unsealed Spellbook, as well as the Guardian for the full support. But this is more of the laning variety.
I mean, if you hit the root after harassing, I mean, that's one way that Wonder can actually pick up a kill there. Pre-6, it's definitely something that you could hope for if you end up getting enough of a lead there.
Yep.
It also means that you don't get bullied as much because you can trade back some of that damage. But, I mean, going back to what you were talking about, the slow and steady wins the race for T1, the reason why we showed all those stats about their leads at, you know, gold difference at 10 minutes, their win rate, if they had that gold lead, is because most of the games they've won this season have been absolutely stomps, right? They have been crushing advantages early on across the mid lane and jungle usually, and then they just snowball that into controlling Drake fights and then ending games early. They have a pretty quick average game time on wins. So playing a comp like this just doesn't, you know, fit the bill for them. It's not what they normally like to do, and it's definitely not the style they like to play with closer.
Yeah, well, that's going to be a pullback. It's Delight already down very, very low. Pops the potion, he's burning down as we've got rockets being traded back, but definitely some good aggressive play to start this one off for T1.
Good start here. I mean, it's not necessarily over either. Delight has to play this very close to Henna and make sure that he's not looking for anything too aggressive, or he just will be a Cathian reigned.
Yep.
Has to pop his potions early.
Already gone through all of them as well. So
yeah.
Certainly going to have a lot more sticking damage. But T1 just shoved the wave into the turret. And ㅅFAKER is going to be playing a little bit more defensively. Some first picks here, of course, Yaharong, first Azir of the season. His second game, of course. Delight not being so successful on the Thresh.
I want to say, though, I think for me, he's been a pretty standout Thresh player in terms of his support pool. Because most of his, if you go down the list of his support champs, his win rate's low because ㅅFAKER are 3-8, right? So
yeah, they don't win a whole lot.
He has played a pretty good Thresh. So those numbers might make you feel like, ooh, this seems like a bad play, but it's a great combo. It's already been shown today.
Very surprising that Hoya hasn't actually played any games of Renekton just yet.
Yeah, that's one of the big standout numbers actually in that list that we just had.
Yeah. As Umpty does take down his Gromp, finishes his clear, but it's just going to be pretty even as things go, as the Lantern going to be taken in from Henna on the bottom side, but does have to flash to get on top of it. And once again, T1 putting on a whole bunch of extra pressure.
Keria can certainly help relieve some of that mid pressure too if the lane keeps being pushed like this. He has the ability to roam and gets up to try to maybe even catch some baits here. If closer's like, oh, I'm going to make it look like I want to engage, and then you trade against me and you think you're going to get killed, and suddenly Keria appears. So having that vision and that communication about where the pike is at all times is very important. As you can see, the pushing power in this lane is really good. Like, closer is going to be able to shove this until 6. He's going to feel very comfortable.
Well, there's a lot of pings onto the mid lane, as you can see Yaharong. He went back. He's going to teleport back into the lane, and this is going to be cleared. And Yaharong's not going to miss out on too much at all. So a bit of a wash there in the mid lane. Slight advantage for Hoya on top side, and T1 doing some pretty great things here on the bottom side of the map with some aggressive pike play. But Henna and Delight pretty happy to sit back and scale as best they can.
And that's the thing, like, we talked about this before, but in a game that's slow like this, it seems to favor ㅅFAKER right now in terms of the composition. This one's not as egregious as the last. You know, they have a Scion that's going to be good for late game team fights.
Seraphine as well.
Seraphine is...
She just gets better and better as the game goes on.
Scion just becomes harder and harder to kill, and you have the ability to just zoom in from a weird angle and sub-stuns, then go into Encore. Like, there's some synergy there. Absolutely. But in terms of damage scaling, you know, I like ㅅ with this Azir pick.
Yep.
And the Jinx.
Plus, the team fighting is going to be good as Hoya does some decent damage there to Zeus, actually, towards the top side. Nicely done. Neither of these top laners have gone for any resets just yet, and Zeus doesn't have a lot of mana left available. Love the whole position.
Just likes to watch it. Hit the ground. Just observe it.
Yep. And yeah, this is
exciting gameplay.
Certainly is. Exhilarating top lane experience for both teams as Owner's going to make his way towards the bottom side. Carry gets under the water. Umpty in position right now.
Doesn't have 6, and he's probably fairly close to it, but if he did have it, you know, there's some playmaking potentially. Jungle experience nerfs. Definitely doesn't have it right now.
Yep.
He's sticking around, though. Uh-oh.
Okay, not going to land that hook. Has control ward here in the brush. Does mean that Umpty knows exactly what's going on. A lot of pings out onto the wards just to make sure that Owner knows exactly what's going on. Voidseeker landing under Henna. We're just trading as much as we can here towards the bottom side. Carrier now thinking about this as his opportunity. Delight is going to deliver a lantern, though. And of course, Henna is going to be absolutely fine.
Now, watch this mid lane because 6 is up for Closer and Yaharong. And Umpty's about to hit 6. There's a really common gank timing with Azir and Taliyah where you just look for big Azir ult into seismic shove, and you get a kill.
Yep.
You get a flash, usually worst case scenario, then you get flash advantage, which can allow you to follow up with another gank. And the timing here is approaching very quickly. This is why Wonder is hovering around the mid lane, because he knows that there is some real high chance that we're going to see a potentially first kill of the game here. If he's not.
Smokescreen is going to connect here as Owner just happy to walk over the rocks right now. There is going to be the Rift Scuttler collected by Umpty, who does have to flash to get out of the way of Zeus' ultimate. He's going to survive, but that flash being on cooldown is actually a big deal here for T1.
Yeah.
Whether they can get more advantages out of it.
And it's just really good respect here from Wonder, knowing that, you know, Umpty and Yaharong can actually make that play happen coming up soon. So he's just kind of following him. And sure, he doesn't get the scuttle that Umpty was so hell-bent on getting there. But he gets the flash, which is inherently way more valuable. So, you know, this is a great time as well for Closer to go back. And that was well handled by T1. Because now that gank potential is kind of gone. It's just not really a thing now anymore.
Tough. But Hoya continuing to shove waves towards the Scion. We'll get a little bit of control of this area. Rift Herald now going to spawn. And ㅅ we'll see when they start to try and play towards this top side, because I want to see them actually utilize the power of the Renekton Taliyah.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough against the Scion, but I mean, you still have some potential there, and it allows you to try to make plays around the Rift Herald. Like, they shouldn't be giving this one up for free. Lane Prio, for the very exact moment we are right now, Closer has that, so it's kind of a tough rotation for Yaharong. Umpty not having flash, like, this is a bit awkward, but they do push him off of it.
Yep, bottom lane actually going to be employed to make sure that ㅅ can gather this one. Hoya does get inside track, moves over. And now ㅅ all just walk on over, and we've got 5 people fighting for the Rift Herald. Should mean that Gumayusi does get himself even more of an advantage on the bottom side of the map. ㅅ certainly putting a lot of eggs into this Herald basket, as it looks like T1 don't want to give this one up without a fight, as Umpty secures it. And he is going to be pulled back. There's the Encore as well. Gets a fair bit of value as now Umpty gets back, gets the heal from Henna, and makes it to relative safety. Closer is now eliminated as the Emperor's Divide is put forward. First Blood going over to the Thresh, as there's the flash out from Zay, as you saw Henna trying to get to that wall to flash over, but isn't quite able to.
Gumayusi gets...
Oh, Carrier, can he actually get that money for himself? The answer is absolutely yes. And now Hoya should be able to try and challenge, as the hook is going to connect. And there we go. Goodbye. 1-for-1 trade there, but getting rid of Umpty, probably more valuable than getting rid of Carrier.
He wanted his
cut.
cut. you know, he wanted his cut. Gets the ult off, gets that extra gold. But, you know, at the end of the day, this trades well back for BROㅣ. They get the Rift Herald. And because Gumayusi did eventually rotate up, they didn't get a whole lot of... T1 did not get anything really else on the map, just one extra wave. And the
Encore was amazing.
The Encore was amazing, but it's just not enough. Umpty is able to survive here for so long, and he walks away, and then Yarong's like, all right, well, this is actually a safe follow-up flash. Emperor's Divide kind of does get caught here. It's actually sniped by the Void Seeker, so some extra gold going over to Gumayusi, and then we see Keria is like, I want to ult this. He even actually grabs his coin like as this happens.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm taking my money right now. And then he gets traded back. There was no way he was getting out, but wanted to get that extra gold. Can respect it.
Definitely worth. Definitely worth.
Yeah.
If you're trading an ulti kill from a Pyke 1 for 1, then obviously more money goes over to the Pyke. Heck yeah.
Yeah, and he can end up doing a lot later on in the game, damage-wise, in some of these team fights too, with the CC that T1 has. There's a lot of potential.
That's heal and flash out from Gumayusi. Is now Keria coming on over. Looks for the Bone Skewer. It is actually going to go over to Delight, who gets a double flash. Flash out there from Owner as well, as Keria now having to create position. As Hoya's teleported in, Gumayusi's well and truly dead as Umpty grabs that one. A playback onto Closer as well, who's completely separated from his team. A beautiful hook from Delight and a double kill for the BROㅣ jungler. I don't know what Umpty had for breakfast this morning, but it must have been good.
And this was a great bait from BROㅣ as well. Like, they knew, okay, we've already gotten Gumayusi's flash and his heal. Now we're going to make this trade happen because we have teleport.
Oh, Bone Skewer's good.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
Rift Herald, though, is going to come down to try and deliver.
This actually could be way more kills, too.
Yep, flash underneath the turret. They just eliminate the Graves as now Keria finds himself on the wrong side of his base. Another double kill. Unofficial Quadra at the start of this game. Can it be the unofficial pentakill at 11 and a half minutes?
Insane here. And like, you have the Rift Herald. You get those. You're going to get those. I don't know what else to say. T1 looked defeated. Zea's head in his hands. We're not even 12 minutes into this game. We are now 7-2 kills here. And this was a cleaner start. Okay, Gumayusi has to heal. He's hoping he's going to dodge it. He doesn't. Then he flashes. The Death Sentence here. And yeah, sure, you have the follow-up bone because you know where the Lantern's going to land. But so this is a bait. Delight has stopwatch. And they are ready to follow up. The teleport comes here too. So now it's like, okay, we got to match teleport for teleport. Because there's no way out of this one. And Closer paths upwards, but I mean, there was not really much he could do. Gets caught by the hook.
Yep.
And T1 in a disastrous position. You fast forward and you're like, there's no way out because Hoya's still here. We've got a Rift Herald. You know all three of those T1 players are dying. And the gold is going over to Umpty again.
Even the Zap was in the right position as well for BROㅣ's AD carry Henna. So, oh man. I tell you what though, Delight is the best 0-3 Thresh I have ever seen.
I'm telling you.
He's like, doesn't have the greatest scoreline on the champion, but that passage of play was pretty beautiful to watch.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I was saying earlier. Like, in the eye test, you look at this guy, you go, well, I mean, it's not fair. It's a 3-8 team.
Yeah.
But his Thresh is really good. It's actually caused a lot of target bans this season already. I mean, Closer on this Seraphine, he's had a few decent ults, but unfortunately, positioning-wise, hasn't been the greatest. And they are just not respecting Umpty. They're not respecting the power of how these skirmishes are going to go for BROㅣ. Especially when your Kai'Sas use flash and heal. They decide to keep chasing without any vision. So,
and now Umpty's back to a 10-stack Dark Seal. Zea's looking to try and steal away a red buff. It's taking him some time, but he should be able to get there. In the meantime, Hoya is just going to shove down his lane. He does have a little bit more time with some plates, but he's not wanting to overextend.
I mean, let's not forget, T1 was very close to taking a win against Damwon Kia just last week, Saturday. You know, there was the second game where Keria had the weird detached Yuumi. There was a follow flash that failed in mid, and there was some big mistakes there that you can go back on. We saw Rise's Closer's Rise. Excuse me.
One of those ways, yeah.
And you know, they could have won that series, but now we're looking at maybe an 0-2.
Oh my god, hooks him out of the air, and Keria is destroyed. Gumayusi wanting to try and catch up with him, but the damage has already been done. There's the Super Mega Death Rocket, and there's the wall ride, as Owner's just delivered silver platter to this Taliyah, who just flashes on top of Gumayusi. And I don't know, I reckon we're packing this one up. You mentioned the fact that T1 just came off a decent performance against Damwon Kia. Guess what ㅅFAKER did to Damwon Kia? They beat them, man.
That's right. I mean, look at this. Look at this. Look at Owner. You know, this is a player who has actually been the one who keeps the mentality right. He and Keria in particular were the ones after that crazy loss that really brought it back in that Damwon Kia series, stayed upbeat. I mean, he was actually the only one in the T1 house who was smiling. You can see Keria's face here. It doesn't look great. Owner head in his hands a second time, as once again they're baited into an exchange where they have no place taken.
Sick from Delight.
I mean, it's blind the hook, but he aims it perfectly. Gets a kill here, and then they stay. Kathy and Rain, Gumayusi's going in, but guess what? Everyone's rotating down. You got vision of it now. You're like, I'm out of here. But you can't outpace. You can't outpace this Talia. You're just not going to.
Oh no, that was actually a bit of a misstep there for Owner as well. I think he was trying to use the collateral damage to go backwards, but
Accidentally went in
the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Actually didn't matter because he was caught mid-animation anyway. But still, a little bit unfortunate.
And I think this, you know, the questions about the identity of T1, it felt like they really had figured it out. But now they're putting closer on control mages 2 games in a row, and unfortunately Wonder looks way weaker when that's the case. I mean, you put him on the Seraphine versus Azir matchup, and I mean, he's going to struggle there. Every Seraphine is going to have some hardships there, but this is not how he plays. This is not how T1 has been playing with roster 7, right? This is just one difference, the 80 carry, and that's been, unfortunately, fairly irrelevant, right, in terms of what comps we're seeing. And it makes you wonder, like, what's the plan here, T1? Are you really okay with putting closer on the Seraphine? ㅅFAKER drafted so well in both games. The ban on the Lilia, and then they take the Seraphine. It's like, well, I'm happy to see closer on a champion where he's not going to pop off. And he's just going to play the Seraphine and heal people.
Oh, having a look, Henna already doing a lot of damage here on his Jinx. Zeus, though, will be able to shove this wave forward. And look, T1, the composition, not quite as early game focused as it was in the first game, so there is certainly a little bit more to be happy for as the game goes on. The problem is that it just feels like ㅅFAKER want this more. That's what it feels like in this game. Like, they are playing like heroes right now.
Yeah, and I mean, the numbers getting higher every game, but it's a team that does, in their very rare advantages, keep the lead. And you can see it. Delight is super calm.
All right, well, here's a gank towards the top side, and a very dead Renekton up there. Good killer instinct to come through from Gumayusi.
This is so kind of funny. Obviously, just going to put the wall up. Going to guarantee this mid turret.
Ooh, okay. Keria is going to be able to make it out, as Shirley's going to cram her head into this turret.
Yeah, not actually a guarantee of the mid turret. Guarantees of the charge, but not actually going to be able to pull up here. Well handled by T1.
It is not over yet, ladies and gentlemen. T1 fans in the audience, we're not packing it up. But ㅅFAKER certainly playing a lot better than we've seen from them in the past. And that is good to see. You want it to be as competitive as possible. Mountain Soul going to be coming down.
Let's watch this again. Just Zeus has been trading with Hoya nonstop, and there's a big rotation up on the bottom side. Gumayusi is just going to immediately kill her instinct, and Keria's not even involved.
Too easy.
Super easy. And I mean, you got to make plays like this. They're finding kills on the map, regardless of the deficit they find themselves in.
And look, as this game goes on, the Scion's going to be more and more difficult to deal with. Owner scales pretty nicely. We've gone over all this scaling stuff, so if they can make a few more of these moments happen, then that big red valley that you can see right there, we might get to the other side of it, as Hoya finds himself pretty unable to do too much work against Zeus, as you can see. So, Keria coming on in, getting some vision down, but unfortunately that one isn't exactly going to do too much.
Nope, not gonna have any staying power here. And
another hook.
Hoya, or not Hoya, Delight is usually the player, when you watch the kind of open mics and some of the calm videos we've had of ㅅFAKER, it's very often Delight who keeps the team calm in these leads that they have. And this is, again, Yahrong's debut for the first time since Jin Air in the LCK.
Yeah.
He's playing much better in this second game because he has a favorable matchup in mid. And this team is just, I mean, they're looking for hooks potentially. They're just otherwise hovering around mid. When they know they don't have vision, they're walking away from those zones, slowly clearing it up. The fact that Hoya is just willing to even let Zeus crash minions into a turret here on the Scion right now is like, respect, right? Because I think Keria and Gumayusi might be nearby. And guess what they are? He walks away. Yeah, you give a turret like this because you have enough of an advantage to where you feel like that's okay.
Well, they can't just keep giving things away. You can see that gap is closing just a little bit between ㅅFAKER and T1. playing for this next Drake is probably going to be important, as now Weaver's Wall comes down just to guarantee this outer turret. I really like this play from ㅅBROㅣ, although the wave clear is pretty good, so it looks like they're not going to be able to actually take this one just yet. Zap just wide onto Owner right here.
Yeah, this turret is like seemingly living forever.
Yeah.
T1 have given a lot of resources to protecting it, but also is sending resources to the bottom side of the map so that Hoya could get that turret. So, like I said, evening up the gold a little bit. And this next objective that we're going to probably be fighting over is this Baron. Now that T1 has this wave pushing and they can clear up some of this vision, they can threaten a Baron take, even if that's not going to be their complete, you know, if they're not actually going to commit.
Yep, and comps with sustain like this and a big old tank can certainly turn from Barons pretty comfortably. That being said, it is 20 minutes in, and there's not a massive amount of damage on T1's side.
Oh yeah, not just yet. And even though ㅅBROㅣ were pushed away and there's a lot of vision around the brush in the river, they do have a ward on Baron, so there's no secrets here.
Well, that ward, he almost got a name.
Yep.
Maybe we'll call it Jeff. Unfortunately, it's after death, but that's okay. Jeff.
He get a tombstone.
He was very good. He
yeah.
was very good. There's a lot of information, so you guys can put your Bible thumbs in there for Jeff. Fantastically done.
Well, this turret's finally going to go down here.
Yay! Well played. And
Slow and steady wins the race.
He's got his Kraken Slayer. We've got Phantom Dancer done for the Jinx as well. A couple of items for both of our 80 carries. Is Gumayushi with his Collector and Gale Force.
It's Mountain Soul, by the way. We didn't really talk about this, but very good for the top side of the map. ㅅBROㅣ, I think, needs to make sure that they can lock this up because it becomes a lot more annoying to deal with the Seraphine and the Scion together.
Yeah, I mean, Mountain Soul is actually busted on Seraphine.
Not to mention that, T1 do start to get towards that way. They're going to have potentially 4 of them. So,
yeah. And look, if this game continues to, just slow down and get a little bit better for T1, then there's a chance that they do manage to stack a few of these. I want to see ㅅBROㅣ keep their foot on the gas, as they do have a lot of bottom side vision. And with 40 seconds left to go on this Drake, it's certainly going to be in their favor.
They have just been chasing Hoya around, and every single time, that he's potentially under.
Ooh, Jeff came back from the dead.
He's back.
Whoa. How you doing, Jeff?
Every time they make these rotations over here towards where he is, he's just always got the presence of mind to back off. He's never overextended. He's never been caught. I really appreciate that about Hoya's play this game. It is costing them damage on turrets and has cost them, of course, the bottom turret, but I love to see that sort of patience and respect.
Yeah, just one of those dives actually working out as Closer does find a bit of a beat drop onto Umpty, but not too much else to worry about. Sundisk goes up. Yaharong makes a very small mid lane, and it should be this Mountain Soul point going over to ㅅBROㅣ, and you can see that Umpty's just going to start it off uncontested. 6-1-3 on this Taliyah, but hasn't been too active since the first successes that he picked up. And with, mid and AD sharing farm in the mid lane, it's not exactly the ideal scenario.
Yeah, Sundisk turret here means that T1, it's really hard for them to rotate, so they can't accomplish anything on the map. The top lane push would be too far. It's too risky, it's too greedy. So ㅅBROㅣ actually kind of just get this for free, and that's really unfortunate for T1 because now this next fight becomes a kind of do-or-die fight for T1, and it's their way they can claw back into this game if they can take a decisive one.
And ㅅBROㅣ now have the opportunity to dance around the Soul Point or the Baron because, of course, one Mountain, not really going to worry too much about that. So all this extra flexibility could be good, assuming ㅅBROㅣ do play towards it. And Umpty going to be able to secure the enemy blue buff, and they are going to look towards this top side to get a little bit more global gold into their back pocket. That's the last outer turret gone.
And T1 have very little vision, so they actually have to push mid. They can't just rotate in from the choke.
Weaver's Wall is going to deny any sort of shove on this turret, as Yaharong does send another minion wave towards this inner turret. That's going to be a bit of money denied. And we've got pings onto the Baron. Just T1 staying aware of the fact that that could certainly be something that ㅅBROㅣ do get towards. 3.5 minutes on the Drake timer. It's all going to be tough to deal with.
Yeah, ㅅBROㅣ plays such a old school LCK style, to get ahead and then just don't take risks, put all the vision up that you can, And then if there's ever a chance that you might lose the fight, like just walk away when you have a lead.
Reddit Breon Galaxy?
Yeah, feels like it, right? It feels very much old school LCK, very, very slow, very careful, tortoise style. And
Yep. And it's like it's an Azir and a Jinx comp, so it certainly does feel a little bit like that.
I feel like a lot of teams, you know, like Sandbox, Longshim, maybe even Freakin' or KT would have actually just tried to fight for Baron at the stage because they're like, we have enough of a lead, like let's just go for it. But Brion's, nope. Yeah, no risks. Why ever take a single one?
Yep, let's not flip for a Baron. That's something that our friend Chronicler has been very upset about in the past, and thankfully no one's done that just yet. But they do need to do something, right? You don't want to just let T1 back into the game.
Yeah, it's almost like they're just waiting for the Drake timer to go up, and then they're going to play the game again.
Well, it looks like Lord Dominic's Regard coming through next for Henna as a hook is going to land onto a Scion. Flick back, not going to give any joy as Zeus just avoids all of the rocks that were flung his way. Finally gets hit by one of them, and we can see that it does do some pretty decent damage. Not a whole lot of magic resist put together here for the Scion just yet, but does have a pretty sturdy health bar. There's 2 minutes on the clock for the Mountain Soul.
Yeah, I mean, just staying in this lull state, we're living in Reddit Breon's patience world that they've created. Like, I don't know, it's like all the walls are made of fluff.
Speaking of walls, Humpty's just going to throw his out. He really likes pressing R buttons, is what I've noticed. So just wanted to get to work there. It does give them some priority on this Baron pit, just to make sure that they can clear out all the vision. Zeus going to get hooked back once again. Now he's very far away from his team, has to flash.
That's a great exchange. Grabbing that flash on the Scion is massive.
Now Hoya just going to move on in to get underneath this turret. Hook's avoided there by Delight as the Encore comes out. And it looks like T1 are looking to try and force. Hoya takes a lot of the upfront damage, but should be able to make it to relative safety. There's a lot of damage being thrown out, and the more these skirmishes can happen, the better it is for T1, because they have the Staff of Flowing Water and the Moonstone. They have Closer there who can press W to get everyone's health back.
Yeah, they're just going to try to out-sustain this. I mean, Yaharong still has his ultimate, but everyone on T1 is healed up and back to full health, so you know, this is going to be a way where you can actually push this wave and then maybe try to get some real vision control on Baron for the first time in a while. You can see Wonders over there clearing that up.
But we've got a minute until this mountain does come back up again, so very important that T1 make sure that they have some vision on both options.
Every T1 fan is holding their breath right now.
I mean, I am too. I actually think that, like, this is a very intense game right now. 5,000 gold, close to the lead still. Like, it's been stagnant for so long.
And the game just cracks wide open after this next objective fight, because if T1, I mean, there is no situation where you trade in this fight. I don't think it's going to be like the whole team gets wiped at the end of the fight. And then suddenly the map opens up for T1 because we're getting close to 30 minutes. Maybe they get an inhibitor after this Drake fight too. So Reddit Breon are, you know, for good reason, showing respect, but the healing does start to add up.
Well, Yaharong just going to slide his way over towards one of his Sand Soldiers. Keep your eye on the Lantern cooldown as well. Delight does have the ability to save a teammate as Hoya putting himself in the front line. Looks like Reddit Breon are getting themselves ready for a fight.
It's going to be so hard to approach this choke point. Might even, they're going to trade objectives here. There's vision,
T1 looking to trade is, I don't think, exactly the greatest option, as it looks like, the Dragon is going to reset, unfortunately, but it looks like Reddit Breon, the priority is going to be on stopping this Baron from going down. Delight in the front line. Misses onto Carrier there.
Carrier's stuck now. He can't get back in. This is actually a huge opportunity for Reddit Breon. Weaver's Wall.
He can find a flank as Hoya off to the side. Does get a few knockups, and the Scion is taken down before he can even taxi his way forward. Henna is going to be eliminated, but Gumayushi suffers the same fate, and T1, they have to peel away the Baron, and they lose the fight. Now they'll lose the Mountain Soul.
This was such a bad decision, I feel, for T1 to actually try to commit here. You can't make a trade like this happen, especially when they have the ability to close in on you like that. Then Carrier's on the flank. He gets zoned out. The Weaver's Wall was available, and they knew that. And you still tried to make this play. They don't have an insanely fast clear time on the Baron either. Sure, they have the tankiness like you were talking about to maybe try to turn a fight, but when you're getting cut in half like that, you're really banking on either them not having vision, Reddit Breon not having vision of this take, or them just deciding they wanted to trade, and they were never going to take that trade. Weaver's Wall comes in. Carrier is completely zoned out. Scion is dead at the very beginning of this fight, and you can't be taking trades anymore after this. Sure, they're going to go for the kill onto Henna, but it's a trade that loses you all your damage. Zeus' body expires, and it's like, well, that's it. Now we got Mountain Soul. And T1 are in a load of trouble now for the rest of this game. They're going to have to go through so many shields.
Yeah.
It mitigates a lot of the healing aspect of this game because the shields are always going to regen and come back up.
And unfortunately, I have a little bit of a blood nose. I think it's dry in here. So maybe it's just the excitement. You don't happen to have a tissue or
I am
anything
looking
like
around.
that?
I might.
That would be really, really handy.
I have a straw wrapper. I don't know if that's what you want.
Yeah, I don't know whether that is, that is going to do it. I'm sorry for breaking the fourth wall there,
It's okay.
ladies and gentlemen, but maybe maybe production can help me out here. It's not exactly, you know, it's not insane, but it is certainly a little bit of a problem.
Well, T1's got a bit of a blade into themselves after that Mountain Drake now. And
Ooh, I liked it.
you know, Atlas, this is a situation where T1, they absolutely still can win this game. But we have to go back to actually how much pressure is on these young rookies. And there's a lot, right? Like, you cannot lose 0-2 to Fred at Breon and go back into that team house. You're going to have to stay off social media for a week.
Well, Gumiushi thinks he might have found Umpty here and almost does take him down as the collateral damage almost secures it. I just wanted to see how much health he was on there, as you could see.
Okay, well, the Baron is
able to
open.
walk away.
Can Weaver's Wall back in, but he is extremely low. It's essentially a 4v5 fight.
It looks like the peel is what they're wanting to opt in for. T1 not going to stay on this Baron. Owner at about half health. Everyone on Fred at Breon is full. Owner eats some honey fruit. He should be all right.
Cannot forget about the Weaver's Wall, T1. For a second, I thought they were going to try to over-chase there, especially with this mid-wave here. I'm like, they do walk away. Now Fred and Brian have their chance to clear up the vision and make a play for this themselves. Fred and Breon's patience is just, I mean, it's Zen-like, right? Like,
but the gold lead still hasn't changed, right? Like, it's not like their position is that much better. Of course, they do have the Mountain Soul, and that is certainly good value. But, you know, Seraphine shouldn't be underestimated as the game goes on.
So many
Sion is a huge tank.
And so many games, Atlas, too, we see with Seraphine where players just walk into the Seraphine ult or try to hard engage into the Seraphine ult. It's such a great defensive tool. Where Fred and Breon is letting T1 throw the dodgeball, they're going to catch it, right? They're going to set up these fights and threaten objectives just by being nearby and force T1 into playing into their hands. That's what we've seen over these last few fights. Fred and Breon is not going for some crazy all-engage or looking for a Flash Emperor's Divide. No, they're just responding.
D, slightly out of position, but Carrier not going to pull any triggers, was alone.
Like, this is like Confucius foretold this like on his tablets about how patient this team is.
But, I mean, there's patient and then there's not making a play, right? And we need to sort of find a balance between the two of these modes.
Yeah, because the later this goes on, I mean, we are going to get to a point where the variance level of this game goes so high to where Fred and Breon could have been 5,000 gold up for 30 minutes, but then they get wiped one time at 45 minutes in the game and then just lose because of the death timers. I mean,
yeah.
Not to mention that, I mean, there is a lot of really crazy wombo potential in T1's composition. So, you know, this Mountain Soul is a lead, but it's like Fred and Breon are just willing to wait one Drake after one Drake after one Drake. They're like, we're not going to take any fights until that Elder Drake is up. Then we can talk.
Looks to me like Umpty is waiting for something like a Zhonya's to be completed next. Might be sort of like a timing type issue.
Staff here.
Oh, heck yeah! Got a little bit of help.
Tissues coming in clutch.
And to be honest, it had sort of stopped, so I think we're okay.
Well, just in case T1 decide to start Baron again.
Yep.
You got those ready for you. So, yeah. Well, I mean, this is a K-Ram, but Fred and Breon have had the more successful exchanges on these objective fights. I mean, they have all four.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, they're actually
now
gonna
just
make this
started
play.
off this Baron. There's the wall to be set up. Gumiushi. Unfortunately, the Killer Instinct comes in, but the Lantern is once again there, and the Baron just stolen away. But now the team fight comes in. The Encore only lands onto one, but that's a lot of Scion value. It's Henna has to flash, but does make it to relative safety. Uses his whole health bar, but that's enough. And Voidseeker not going to do it either. So Fred and Breon, successful heist of the Baron, and they also get rid of the bodyguard.
The execution of this fight was so well done. Hoya has a stopwatch, so he's able to come in and block everybody else out after the Weaver's Wall comes through. And sure, a few of the members of T1 do spill through, but they actually out-survive the damage there. And, like, Henna doesn't die. Hoya's got his stopwatch. And then you've got this insane clear time at this stage of the game on this Baron. And look at everybody else trying to fill in here for T1. Baron goes down, and now Zeus is trying to come through. But look at this. Hoya just disconnects. He says no one else is coming in here. He has the stopwatch that he bought. And they just turn on to Zeus. Henna survives, and now T1 can't take the fight. Even though the charm was fairly decent, there just wasn't enough follow-up damage.
I mean, the charm landed onto only Henna, but that was exactly what T1 wanted to do, right? They wanted to eliminate the Jinx from the fight. They almost did it, but unfortunately it wasn't quite enough. And now he's got a stopwatch, he's got an Infinity Edge, and there is an Elder Drake on the map. The Baroned up Fred at Brionne looking very scary right now.
There's a control ward there. Careful.
Minion Waves just sort of going into the void right now as there's a teleport from the Scion.
Okay, here we go.
We're flipping. Looks like T1 are going for a last-ditch effort right now. Hoya is going to have to slice to get himself out of the way. Good Bone Skewer is going to connect as the charm lands only onto the Renekton. Henna trying to get the autos through as they trade tanks in the front line. Still, the Elder Drake is amongst the fight. Umti going to get turned on. Does have the Zhonya's, remember, and they just destroy Ona. That's in fact just Umti that explodes him by himself.
He has 10 stacks. The guy is actually insane. He's got so much damage this game. You can't challenge that. What
he
are you
also
doing?
had his Zhonya's, so he was probably going to be fine anyway, as the Elder is now going to get secured by the Azir of all people. Scoops up Gumayushi. And I have a feeling we've done it. It's the 2-0 for Fred at Brionne.
Look at the damage.
Once again over one of our top teams.
Look at the damage here from the Azir in this late game fight. And T1 just could not set up for this. Tanks are traded, and then you challenge. One are challenged. Humpty, 10 stacks on that Dark Seal.
9-1-5, dude.
I mean, why challenge that? I mean, there's a lot of things went wrong in that fight. Here we go, Atlas. It looks like we are going into the last fight of this game. An 0-2 for T1.
It's just a last-ditch effort there from Zeus, who's now going to try and keep these minions busy as best he can. Carrier doing the same thing as now Ona is going to come back in. Collateral damage used mainly on this minion wave, but my god, the damage. Jinx rips through turrets. She rips through the Nexus, and Fred at Brionne rips through T1.
Absolutely zen, the patience we saw from this team. So slow, so careful, so steady wins the race has always been their style when they take down these Titans. A lot of people are calling this team the Kingslayers because they have crushed Damwon Kia. Now they've taken out T1 in dominant fashion, 2-0s, both of them. And I gotta say, there's a team we're starting to get a little bit excited about right now. But for T1, this is a season that fans will never forget. I mean, this is riddled with ups and downs. It feels like T1 is on the up and up, and then they drop 0-2 to Fred at Brionne. Where is the consistency? Right now, fans can't trust the coaching staff. They don't know what to do. They're looking at closer. A lot of people are putting blame on this mid laner, who's actually incredibly mechanically skilled, but they're putting him on control mages, the Syndra, and then later on the Seraphine, which doesn't seem like it's in his wheelhouse. Owner having a lot of problems in the jungle here as Lilia's banned away, ends up having to play Graves when they don't have mid prio. And it feels like this team is lost in draft. The players are stressed out. I don't know if we've ever seen players have had as much pressure on them in the LCK as this team has right now. Everyone will remember the 2020 spring of T1. We don't know what the end of the story is yet, but this is a season that T1 fans are going to remember, for better or worse, forever. And I mean, I think this is a really sad ending to our day for T1 fans. People expected this to be a 2-0 crushing and stomping after what we saw last week, and we just don't get that.
Yeah, the thing I want to talk about is Fred at Brionne, though, because they are the success story. They've found another victory over a Titan here in the LCK. They've looked, on the upward trend over the last couple of games, and I was just looking at Edgar there in the coach's sort of area on the player cams, and he's just like, 2017 did the same thing, man. It's easy. It's easy. It's no worries. And it wasn't. It was definitely took some methodical play out of Fred at Brionne. It took them overperforming. It took an unbelievable day from Umti. I think Umti really showed his veterancy, and maybe there's something in, like, just put as many Jin Air players that you can find together, and you're going to find some success.
Yeah, maybe if Jin Air got a franchise spot, things will look a little bit different. I don't know.
Oh, don't say things like that.
Oh,
makes me sad.
It is sad. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll have a return to Jin Air.
Yeah,
they disbanded for now, but
Maybe they could sponsor ㅅFAKER or something like
That'd be
that.
cool.
That would be really cool. They
Well,
kind of pull out.
I mean, Atlas, this is not the result anyone expected, but after watching game one, you could believe, you could trust. Like, you were like, we're all sitting in the studio going, well, this could happen. And then in game two, T1 have a better start. But as the game goes on, I mean, it's just methodical play. Drakes after Drakes, never take a risk. I mean, I have to give Hoya tons of credit. He did get killed that one time, but otherwise, he was always stepping away, and T1 were chasing him around the map, and he never got picked after that one. And
that was actually one of the better weak side Renekton performances that we've seen, right? There's a lot of them that are just a pretty sad story, you know, where it's just cooked crocodile over and over again. But this was him making sure that he was there catching waves when he had to, but also getting the heck out of there if that was where T1 were rotating. And unfortunately, their composition never really got off the ground. I felt like T1's bottom lane did exactly what it was supposed to do in the very early stages, but it just wasn't enough. They couldn't keep up the pressure. And then as soon as they lose that bot skirmish, where Umpty gets 5 kills, the unofficial pentakill to start off this game, it felt like that was some very early nails in what was eventually, you know, the coffin of game 2.
I mean, he gets 10 stacks insanely early, and he's just zooming around the map, killing people. And Lilia just feels like this unstoppable champion right now.
I mean, sorry, well, and on the Taliyah as well.
On the Taliyah as well, yeah, sorry, I was like thinking,
I think, like,
where my brain went there.
Because, like, the nerf to Taliyah only really works for, like, the beginning and early clears, right? You give her 5 kills, it means absolutely nothing because she has more items and can just kill the jungle so much easier. So getting off the ground is the problem for Taliyah, but once she does, she's exactly the same oppressive monster. Here are some highlights, though, from this game. I'm still coming to terms with what just happened, Wolf.
Oh, my brain
crazy.
stopped working. As we're going to watch with one of the first team fights of the game here, where, you know, you saw the really nice follow-up ult there, but Umpty just lives. He doesn't care. And then he's, like, turning it around. He had a great game on the Lilia. They banned the Lilia away. Then he plays the Taliyah and crushes it. And, I mean, this guy is out of control good today. And when you have a Renekton, too, I mean, you could play a lot of the aggression, but actually he played bottom side more than top. Found so much success there. And Keria, in this game, you know, outside of lane, especially in the late game, he just really was trying to set up for flanks and picks, but the Pyke just fell off big time later on, whereas Delight was, I feel like, for all game long, insanely valuable.
Yeah, no, Delight had one of the best series that I've seen. Umpty as well, absolutely overperformed. Maybe this is the new look for BROㅣ. Maybe it's Yaharong that's done it for them, you know? I mean, it didn't really look like it, but maybe just having a bit of a change-up and some fresh eyes on the squad is really going to help them out because they looked really good today.
Now, this is the fight you were talking about on the bottom side of the map where just so many kills were fed over to Umpty. And, I mean, this was an insane hook as he was actually underwater.
Yeah.
And he grabs him there. Get a lantern here, gets out for free, then gets the ult further away, and Umpty is sliding in. I mean, he played a phenomenal Taliyah. It just goes to show that, you know, yeah, maybe clear time is nerfed, but if you play it correctly and if you're constantly roaming and catching players who are making mistakes or being over-aggressive, you can just be just so insanely powerful. And this was such a good fight here for BROㅣ.
What?
So many resources used to try to catch him.
I didn't notice that Henna ran forward to get himself a lantern and then had to get the heck out of there. That was very odd. But we're going to listen to the players here in the final team fight.
천천히 한 턴 빼고 앞라인 빼고 없어 이거. 얘네 앞라인 아예 없다.
They don't have any front line.
그거 높여 그거 높여. 기다려봐.
천천히 해봐.
10초래 스마 10초래. 스마 10초.
Launch it slowly is one of the calls that came through.
10초래.
디락 알아봐.
They're calling something as 10 seconds. I'm not actually sure what they were saying was 10 seconds.
Snipe maybe? Probably. Didn't need it. Nope. I think that was saying mid lane.
Yep.
That's my bit of translation there for you guys.
It was 10 seconds on Smite. We got the confirmation of the production.
무시해.
But yeah, I mean,
나 쌍둥이에 찍을게.
끝났어. 아 근데 내가 왜 이렇게 운영을 못할까 해서.
사이언 5초다. 아직 안 끝났어.
그브
15초.
그브 풀 빠져. 사연이 클리어하는 거 생각.
나 텔대.
Umpty kind of feeling himself a little bit.
그냥 이거
Oh, Delight, I think Delight was like, it's not over, man. But it is definitely over, actually. Yeah. Delight always keeps everybody calm. You'll have to see it.
라인.
다음 라인 지금
왜 자꾸 바라키?
Clear the lane. Clear the wave.
타타타 끝내. 그거.
Finish it. Finish it.
카이사 10초.
같이 끝내줘.
Kai'Sa up in 10.
킬로리지 마. 이겼다. 근데 진짜 미안하다 얘들아. 형이 운영.
Someone's apologizing.
Yeah, someone's apologizing. I don't know why they're apologizing because I think there wasn't really a weak link on this squad today. ㅅFAKER looking real good. It definitely wasn't Yarong who was doing a whole lot of work. That last team fight especially. But you can see, like, that was a flat line of gold for ㅅFAKER throughout most of that game. It was 15 minutes or something of just a 4,000 gold lead. But they managed to make the game exactly what they wanted of it at the end. They secured, I think, every Drake this whole series.
And I don't think the comp that T1 was running was that great for any aggression, right? Like, it's hard to initiate fights with when you're slightly behind as well and their opponent has a Mountain Drake with the Seraphine because you don't kill anybody right away. And then you're like, okay, well, my Pyke has to flank, and that's really hard to do. And then where's the damage going to be? It's too hard to fight, like, straight up front to back. And then the scaling that comes through with the Azir just crushes you. You're really caught between a rock and a hard place with this comp, and it just doesn't work at the end of the day, unfortunately, when ㅅFAKER just play the safe. Because it's great defensively, but if ㅅFAKER never just all in on you or try to fight you straight up, you don't get to have that defensive fight, unfortunately. And that's what I really respected about ㅅFAKER's play in that second game.
Yeah, I was just impressed across the board. Mostly Delight and Umpty, but the rest of the team as well. I mean, everyone sort of just did their job. Hoyer as well, like, played the Gnar into Renekton matchup very well in game number 1, and then sort of played this weak side Renekton that, you know, you don't exactly applaud it. Could have been a lot of different champions. However, he did exactly what he was supposed to. He was a meat shield in that last team fight and went down same time as the Scion. Can't ask more than that, right?
Yeah, well, zoning everybody else out.
Yeah, right.
it's very impressive stuff, Atlas.
But now, do you know what? If you're a T1 fan, it's okay, because you can go down alongside Damwon Kia as another one of the teams that lost to ㅅFAKER. And only our best fall to ㅅFAKER.
I'm sure that's exactly how the fans will see it.
Some optimism, okay? You gotta, sometimes your cup needs to be half full, no matter who you are. And here on the desk, we are absolutely the opposite.
I usually am, you know. I think we're ready to go back to our post-game and our interview, though, Atlas.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what our analysts have to say. So here is Jisun for some translation.
Thank you very much, guys. And ㅅFAKER closes out the night with a very clean 2-0 win up against T1. Gorilla mentioned that Pyke should be picked into Thresh, and that really happened on the side of T1. And Pyke can win trade really hard in the early game with that hook and the hail of blades proc. But T1, I think today in general, they were not trying the comp that really fits them well. T1 is a team that has to play around the top lane, but this time around, they put closer on the Seraphine duty and also Scion on Zeus. So this is not the T1 that we used to know. So they kind of gave up the priority on the top lane. They were some late game potential with the utility coming from Seraphine and their massive damage output from the bottom duo. And T1 was able to find some value from Pyke in the early trade, but still Thresh combined together with Jinx was really strong, and T1 had no kind of way to break them down. Overall, T1 was not able to get any kills compared to the duration of this game, so they were not able to get any meaningful value of their draft, whereas ㅅFAKER was really bold with the way they kind of used their ability, skills, and map decisions. Well, at the end of the game, Umpty was kept saying, well, I'm so sorry guys, my macro was so bad, but still Umpty was doing a fantastic work throughout this game. So let's take a look at this unofficial pentakill secured by Umpty. T1 was looking for a setup for a 3v2 fight, but Kai'Sa started off with a blunder. And then let's look at this here. Kai'Sa ults in onto the trapped of Jinx. That's not the engage that Kai'Sa wants to look for, but still he got interrupted because of that E skill of Jinx, and then with the teleport back up, Bro was able to turn this around. So Umpty secured 2 kills already, and then Freddie BROㅣ pushes the issue forward.
표정에서 드러났던 행복준이 그대로 드러났던 진짜 멋진
Very
다이브였습니다.
clean threat dive up against T1 player pulled off by Freddie BROㅣ. 10 out of 10 for this turret dive because the way they juggled the turret aggro and the way they kind of allocated the damage was really on point.
오늘 경기력이 고점이 아니라
I think based on the performance we saw, I think this is only the beginning for Freddie BROㅣ to hit the higher ceiling later in the split. After this multiple outplay, we saw another one coming through for Freddie BROㅣ. Let's take a look. So after Keria clears out that ward, he goes underwater, and Delight actually finds him when he was actually invisible with the prediction. And then a clean follow-up engage coming from Hena was enough to lock down that kill, and then we had a backup from Talia as well. And then today, he was so decisive, locking down those kills. As you mentioned earlier, Graves is a champion that gets a lot of work done in skirmishes, but T1, what used to be a team that plays around the top lane based on the priority in the laning phase. But we had a lot of actions breaking out on the bottom side of the map, and Freddie BROㅣ was able to actually keep control on the right-hand side of the map. And Freddie BROㅣ picks up the 4th victory of the split, and POG will go over to Umpty once again. Another back-to-back solo jungler POG for today. I think today, watching Freddie BROㅣ